Let me go ahead and just welcome you to the Pro Spotlight and let you know a little bit about what the Pro Spotlights are. First of all, my name is Casey Taylor. I'm a customer training specialist here at JobTread. And for those who aren't aware what our Pro Spotlights are and somehow you found yourself here, essentially this is our opportunity to introduce you to some of our amazing users who also presented at this year's Connect conference, who are also fellow JobTread users. And we've asked them to come here to share some of their wisdom that they shared with everyone that they presented to at the Connect conference, because not every one of you were either signed up for JobTread, you didn't know about Connect, or you weren't able to go. And so this is their opportunity to share some of the wisdom that they learned and shared with you to try and help you out in your business, to help you out with how you're using JobTread. And it's what continues to make JobTread one of the most amazing places to be a part of. It also is what we feel like makes us sort of a cut above the rest in terms of construction management softwares and solutions. We think it's the best on the market, in so much part because of this community. So thank you guys so much for both being here, being willing to share, because you could be like our presenter here today, Nicholas, who I'll introduce you to momentarily. But I do want to highlight today one of our incredible users that I mentioned who has gone above and beyond presenting at our conference. Today, our Pro Spotlight guest is Nicholas Donlin. He is the owner and founder of Zenith Design and Build out of Des Moines, Iowa. And Zenith Design and Build are residential remodelers. They've been serving the Des Moines and surrounding areas since 2018. So for about the last 7 years, and Nicholas and Zenith have been part of JobTread, the big broad family of JobTread. They've been users with us since the end of December in 2022. And Nicholas was actually on our CEO, Eric Fortenberry's podcast, Builder Stories, on episode 28, where he talked about building a team of owners. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the link to that Builder Stories episode into the chat so that you'll have the ability to hear a little bit more about he and his story. He's going to share a little bit with you, but you'll be able to hear a little bit more of a developed idea of his story. And we're really excited that he's both a part of our family, but also that Nicholas has agreed to present here today on the Pro Spotlight. And before I turn it over to him, let's just go ahead and set some ground rules. This is just really helpful for you so that you know what to expect, because we want you to be able to engage and interact with Nicholas and with myself. But let's just kind of set some ground rules. So there are 2 chat boxes, one coincidentally called the web chat. So the webinar chat is where you're going to make comments. He'll ask you questions. He might ask you like a little bit of a pulse or a poll. You are going to give those answers there. That's going to be where you're able to engage with one another, with just sort of the content broadly. But if you have a question that you'd like to ask, we want to make sure that you have space for that. And so at the end of each one of these Pro Spotlights, we build in time for you to be able to ask questions at the end. So those questions will go in the other chat box, which should be somewhere on your little toolbar. You'll see a Q&A. That's going to be where you pop in there and you'll put those questions. And if it's questions I can answer, I'm going to try to answer it for you. But if it's questions for him about his content and his presentation, or even about his business, that's going to be a great place for you to be able to ask those questions. We'll hold those for the end, and then we'll let him answer those questions. So let me get a couple of those questions out before I toss it over to Nicholas. First and foremost, yes, this will be recorded. We will have it up on our Facebook page tomorrow. We'll have it on our help desk tomorrow. It'll also be on our outward-facing website if you want to recommend this to anyone who might be considering JobTread. So know that that's going to be there. Yeah, so we record these. And I do want to just kind of throw out a real quick shout out. So again, these presentations are initially given at our Connect conference. We do have tickets available for Connect conference. Those are going pretty quickly. So I want to let you guys know about that. I put the link in the chat if you are curious about Connect. It's an incredible way to meet other builders like Nicholas, but also to learn from people like Nicholas. So if you love what you hear today, just know there's a wellspring of knowledge like what you're going to hear today at the conference, as well as an opportunity to meet some incredible people. You guys are awesome. Builders are awesome. Salt of the earth, but also some of the smartest, most strategic and clever people. And so you'll have an opportunity to get to meet other people just like you. Okay, so now his presentation today, Nicholas's presentation today, is going to be called Achieving a 10-Time Improvement in Slippage. So would everyone please give a warm JobTread welcome to today's Pro Spotlight guest, our presenter, Nicholas Donlin. Take it away, brother.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it, Casey. Also, shout out to Connect. It's a great conference for anybody that wants to go. I would highly recommend it. Also, I'll be speaking with JobTread at the International Building Show. So if you're going to that, you can also hear me talk there as well. But all right, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to get this set up here. All right, go. Casey, are we good right now? Can you everyone see okay?
Everyone's looking great. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Casey. All right, so I'll go through these slides today. Um, it is really important to me that we have like a really good Q&A after this too. Unfortunately, I can't see everybody's pretty faces, so I will want to make sure we have as much engagement as possible at the end. But I think a lot of this will be kind of what you want to get out of it. But I'm going to go over my presentation, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. So like Casey said, there's a Q&A button. Put as many questions as you can in there, and I'm happy to pull up things after the presentation here. So let's see here. All right. So 10x improvement on slippage. I'd like to tell you who I am real quick here. I'm a father to 6 kiddos. My beautiful wife is there as well, my kids. And a little background about me. I did not come from construction. I came from a hardworking middle class family. My mom was a nurse, mostly raised by a single mom, and I had a twin brother. And in high school, we got into flipping houses. We watched like HGTV shows or some sort of shows like that, and made us really curious about construction. And so, really kind of started grassroots to getting my hands dirty. Actually, just got my hands dirty a few weeks ago with making my finger black, but from hammering it too many times. But I think that's kind of important just to know kind of where I come from. And so really built it from the ground up, and then. I did go to construction engineering school, graduated from there, and did some commercial contracting work. But then I really I've always wanted to own my own company, from doing the flips in high school to doing some other ventures. I actually started Zenith 7 years ago, like Casey said. We're a remodeler, general contractor, design build company. And through that, I moved to a new town. I thought it was a great idea for me to start Zenith. New town, didn't know anybody. Besides my brother at the time, never sold anything before, but I knew construction, and I had this vision for what we wanted to do. And I was 25, so I had a lot of energy at the time, still have a lot of energy, but thought it was a great idea to start this company. And in the beginning, we grew really, really fast. So you'll see here, I put a note here, we were on the 5,000 list 3 years in a row. And we have about 1,300, just over 1,000% growth over 3 years. So we grew really, really fast, but there's so many pains within those learning lessons. So the stats sound really great, but the lessons learned were very impactful. And a huge portion of that was I knew construction, but I didn't know a lot of other parts of the business, the financials. And so that's the thing that I struggled with very early on. And also COVID hit, so we had fixed price agreements and the market changed. So there's a lot of things. It was kind of like this perfect storm of just starting a company, growing at such a fast rate, and then having fixed price agreements going into COVID. And then so that really, really hurt our business. And so we end up having close to a 20% slippage, and we've got it down to about 2% right now. And it's a huge credit of having good softwares and systems in place, and then good people. So in this presentation, I'll talk a lot about systems, people, accountability metrics, things like that. So we'll talk more about that. And I noticed on the screen, it says 5 kiddos. I have 6 kiddos. You'll see on there, but I love my family, and a part of the reason why I do what I do. So without further ado, we'll jump into this. My outcome for this is that we boost profitability, and we have a foster accountability driven culture. I just think that the only way to really get an impact is you have a culture of accountability. If it's just you or you're a smaller company, it's still important for you to be accountable for yourself and for your business. And so we'll talk about mechanisms in which to foster that accountability driven culture, which inherently will boost profitability. And my belief is that, all the pains that I went through, I hope that I can teach some of the lessons that I've learned through the WIP reports or through, using JobTread to make sure that people are really making money in this industry. I believe this is a hard industry compared to some other things that I've done in the past. And for a number of reasons, we can get into that later if you guys want to know my thoughts on that. But But I think that you have to be just very disciplined about doing things consistently. And through this, I'll give you some more insights on how we do that with a team of people. Okay, so I want to first talk about like, so why does this slippage happen, or why did it happen for me? And then you might find some common things that you see in what in your company and how you might have had slippage problems as well. I think high level, a lot of it comes down to lack of accountability, which is typically from either wrong people or unclear roles. And then within that too, I always say it's the people that help create the process, but you also have to have eliminate inefficiencies in this process. And I think in our industry, there is a lot of long feedback loops, or it takes a long time to sell a project, do the design, go through construction. And so oftentimes you change something, and then the length of time to get that feedback can be very long. So we need to figure out how to shorten the feedback loops if at all possible, slash measure things consistently. So if we're doing the feedback, we're making sure we're implementing those changes and we're seeing the results at the end of it. And then the other point I have here is not measuring the correct things or inaccurate data. There's things that we do weekly to make sure JobTread data and our reporting is accurate. And we'll go through some mechanisms we have for that, and our ways to track accountability slash activities each week as well. So some key principles to address slippage. First, it's clarity to eliminate finger pointing. We have to have clear roles and accountability. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then encouraging the right behavior. In the beginning, it was hard for me, and I got a little cynical about like when people would make mistakes, I'd get very frustrated. And a lot of business owners could probably relate of your staff members making mistakes and then being frustrated because it feels like a surprise, and it kind of feels like you got sucker punched, or it's like a surprise, right? And nobody wants bad surprises. They want good surprises. So we want to talk about just really fostering um, good behavior and not always just punishing people for what they did wrong. So, uh, so here is a little bit of the problem, or this conundrum. We want to paint this picture for the problem. So in our case, this is our case, and it's probably similar-ish to many companies that I know of, is you have somebody that prices out the job. Maybe it's estimator, maybe your salesperson prices out the job, but there's somebody that's responsible for pricing the job out. And then you also have somebody that's responsible for bookkeeping or entering the bills that come in the system on the back end. Usually your person's pricing job out, selling the job, or in the front end of the process isn't your bookkeeper and your accountant as well. So there's that. And then you also have someone likely running the projects, superintendent, carpenter, lead carpenter, project manager, somebody that's running the project. So with anything with multiple people, we have to make sure we create this level of clarity. And oftentimes it's not as perfectly clear as this person does this and it never impacts anybody along the way. Because if it's priced out, that pricing impacts everybody along the way, or how they execute. So if a lead carpenter does a really good job, then it's on track and on budget. But if they don't do a good job, it might be off track and off budget, but they weren't the person that was accountable for creating the estimate. So we want to make sure that we're not having that happen, and creating this clear level of accountability and systems of checks and balances. So as you see, there's some kind of things here. It's like, okay, estimate a price of the job, but should they take ownership of the correct price if they're not involved at all afterwards? So there's conversation around that we'll have today. Did the bill get entered correctly in the bookkeeping system, so that way it can be tracked in the system correctly? Because if it's for the wrong cost code, your WIP report or your budgeting might look off, or it might look like you have more slippage on the job. And then the carpenter, they know if the work has been completed. So it's important that your superintendent or carpenter, whoever's managing the job, can sign off on the fact that this has been completed and we're willing to pay this person. And I think that really kind of completes back, because once you pay somebody, then the assumption is that they've done the work correctly, with exception to maybe some things you might have lingering that you have conversation around. And then also the superintendent didn't price out the job. So how do you make sure that they still want to take ownership in that, or are willing to make sure that they're not wasting hours on the job? So this last point here, then how do we know as an owner that each bill you're paying is not over budget or over? Because you have these people that are executing the job within your company, and you might be a part of that. But then let's say you get to QuickBooks and then you're approving invoices or you're paying people each week or each month or however your system or your process works. And then how do you know from QuickBooks that you can pay people or whatever accounting system you're using? Because ultimately that's how you're end up paying your bills, but it's not in JobTread. So it's these kind of systems and conundrums that we want to make sure we solve for these pain points. So we have so we can make sure we're not minimizing slippage on projects. So my belief is that there's all sorts of people that say different things, but I think all problems create these opportunities for a good system and good people. And so this problem, I think, is prime for a really good system of checks and balances, what we also call the second set of eyes. So the solution, use JobTread. It's not quite as simple as just using JobTread as you could imagine. There's a number of other things to go involved with it, but JobTread is a really, really great tool within the system that we use to make sure that we have checks and balances for minimizing slippage. So it's not just JobTread, but JobTread is a very, very good tool in that system and has really helped be a game changer for us. And some minor things in JobTread that I think people take for granted is just the coloring of things. Over budget things are red, under budget things are green, but those visual effects really help create better ownership from a holistic team perspective. So again, JobTread is a really great system for us. So I'll go over the framework and then we'll get into the actual solution. But our framework and some three main bullet points that has helped with our success in this is, excuse me, we have an accountability chart. So I think you really want to make sure that you have really clear roles and responsibilities. And it's not like you have a roles and responsibilities sheet. You actually look at that holistically as it's related to other people in the organization. So we use the traction methodology or the accountability chart methodology. So everybody has a few bullet points for their accountability. And then within that, we're also determining what success looks like in their role. And then number two, it's this concept of workflow segregation. It's kind of a fancy word for what we call second set of eyes. And this is really important, I believe, for really things that impact the bottom line. And I think that we use this in a couple different ways. We use this on our financials, which we're talking about today. We also use this on customer experience related things. And a lot of times that relates to financials too. So we redline drawings and we have second set of eyes of reviewing drawings before the client signs off on them as well. So there's a number of ways to use this in your processes and systems, but we want to make sure there's oversight on the financials specifically, and that's what we'll be talking about. We also want this kind of decentralized peer-to-peer oversight. So it's not just an owner looking down and saying, can see these things that are being done incorrectly. We want this kind of hierarchy and this ways for peers to see things and review things. And so you'll see that in our process. And it kind of naturally works that way because you have, let's say, an estimator, a project manager or superintendent, and you have this bookkeeper. So you kind of naturally have these people seeing these things. So you have kind of three peers that can check these systems to see if it's done incorrectly or different responsibilities within that. So the last thing, this is that feedback cycle. So that there's an OODA's loop. It's simple. It's just kind of a feedback loop. So you observe it, you orientate based off your observation, you decide what you're going to do, and then you act. So the idea is we want to make this fast and iterative. And then, but unfortunately, in construction, it can be very long cycles. So I want to make sure is that we're kind of trying to create as kind of micro things in there as much as possible. So like, it's not like we know if the budget is over budget or under budget at the end of the year. We want to make sure, end of the project. We want to make sure we can see it along the way, and we can make sure we can make iterations potential along the way, but at least iterations to our process to make sure that we can navigate that effectively or efficiently as possible. Okay, so accountability chart, this just gives you kind of a just big overview of our accountability chart as it relates to paying bills slash the financials of a job. So we have a bookkeeper. They're entering all the bills into JobTread. And then we have a project manager. We call them a project manager. Some people will call them estimators. It might be your salesperson, but they're pricing out all the projects and is responsible for the grippage and slippage of the job holistically. And then we also have a superintendent, you might call it a project manager or a carpenter that runs the projects in construction. So they're actually the ones approving the bills and they're approving under budget or on budget bills. And then that way we know that that work has been completed and they have ownership in, yes, it's been completed and I feel comfortable paying them. If it's anything that's over budget, a part of our system is it will go back into the project manager's court or the estimator's court. And that point, they can say, okay, what's going on and diagnose it. So they have ownership from what they estimated and making sure that it actually is on track. But we don't need them to see everything that's on budget because a superintendent can handle that. So that's a little bit insights into our accountability chart and the systems in which that works. This talks about this workflow segregation. I kind of talked about this a little bit in the last slide, but again, bookkeepers ending bills. So the bookkeeper, since we're not making them responsible for what is or isn't over budget, but we're making them responsible for tagging the items that are over budget. So then we can see that all the way from my owner view. So from right here, I can see what bills are over budget and under budget. And I'll show you in the next few slides on how I see that. And then we have a superintendent. They do not approve over budget bills without PM approval first. So again, the system checks and balances. If it's under budget, approval straight through. But then if it's over budget, then it becomes a second set of eyes with our project manager on it. So project manager responsible to approve all bills over budget with reasons why, or holds people accountable based on bids. So if it's over, there's got to be a good reason why, or something that we made a mistake on, or they're going to hold them accountable to the bids that we've already received, the bid requests or statements of work within JobTread. And again, owner review. This is where when this system is done well and consistently, I get to see everyone that's over budget. So I can also diagnose and see if there's any consistent problems or because ultimately I have to be responsible for the overall profitability of the company. So I want to have I want to have a pulse on what's happening from an over budget perspective. This could be potentially your construction manager, or it could be potentially be a production manager of some sorts to see this as well. But currently that's how I want to have a pulse on it, because we've had the slippage in the past. So I want to make sure I have a pulse on this to make sure we're doing a really, really great job on this. Okay, going back to the third bullet point, which is the OODA loop, the feedback loop. This is like kind of some structures, and I'll go through this in a video in a second, but of how we have this fast feedback loop, or as fast as we can in this industry. So we do a weekly department L10 meeting, and it's in the EOS format. So we kind of see issues and put issues in there so we can resolve issues on a weekly basis. And that's holistic issues for the department. And then we also have a weekly ARP meeting, accounts receivable and accounts payable meeting. And then this is where I get to see all the ones that are over budget or under budget before approval. We also have a monthly financial meeting, which we go through WIP, P&L, balance sheet, and then a quarterly pulse meeting. So we have cadence of things as it relates to a weekly cadence and then a quarterly cadence of things. And then I believe that the cadence is a key component in which you have good feedback loops. It's not about just an after action review, or once a project's done, you review it. I think there should be a cadence of things on a weekly basis and a quarterly basis. I think that also fits in a natural rhythms with if you have a weekend, then you start the next week. So you can get into this rhythm of week after week. And then also as the seasons change, it's similar to the quarterly pulse. Seasons change, you have new goals that you set as well. But the more you measure, the more you look at things, the more times you have for correction. So if you're doing weekly, you have 52 times to correct, monthly 12, and quarterly 4. So I think that that's just very important within the process as well. So again, here are the tools that we use, the weekly L10 scorecard. I'll go through this in the video. Bill entry into JobTread, approval of bills using our reports in JobTread, and then accounts receivable and accounts payable meeting, a monthly closeout checklist, and then an after action review. These are the systems that we'll be going through in the video that I'm going to share with you to get some more insights on this. All right. I'm going to play this video, and this will go through our system, and then after this, we'll work into some question and answer. So first, we're going to start to make sure we have accurate data coming into all of our other reports, and we actually use our weekly scorecard or our L10 scorecard, and we have different departmental metrics, but we're going to focus on all the ones that are in orange here that relate to JobTread and keeping our data accurate. So we actually look at every single week, we look at grip slip numbers as a percentage, a dollar amount. Oh, sorry about that. Try this over. So focus on all the ones that are in orange here that relate to JobTread and keeping our data accurate. So we actually look at every single week, we look at grip slip numbers as a percentage, a dollar amount, and projected margin. And then we have a report in JobTread that is basically similar to a WIP report, but it basically just shows all jobs that are 70% or greater complete. Because if they're before that, it really kind of skews our grip and slip numbers. So we look at that specifically. We also look at uncategorized items in JobTread. This is really important because we want to make sure at the end of every week, our goal is to be at 0 for uncategorized costs, because if not, then it really skews our numbers up above. We also just generally look at making sure our notifications are down for project management. Just shows that we're managing everything well in JobTread. We also look at addendums, but this isn't as relative to our conversation today. And then we have unapproved bills. So we want to make sure that every bill gets approved within a week. And that way our information is correct. And you'll look at when we actually go and enter bills, why this is extra important. But we all have reports for all of these, and we just link these to a spreadsheet that we quickly review on a weekly meeting. So this is really how we start to get that accurate information. So then when we go and put in bills and we approve bills, we know that we have some accurate information in there on a weekly basis. So now I want to show going into us entering a bill into JobTread. And so here's a bill that's come in, and I'll show you this in a second as it relates to being in JobTread. So bills come in, and then we're going to enter this into JobTread. And I'm going to not enter the bill, and I'm going to show you how we do this at a high level, just so we don't waste time with just the nuances of entering in all the bill information. But here is the bill. And so the way we enter bills, JobTread has created some new options up here to enter bills. We opt to not do that because we want to know what's in our current budget so we can mark it as over budget. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to documents, and then we're going to do bill. I'm going to type in the invoice or vendor's information. And then I know based off the invoice that it's finished carpentry labor. So again, this has already been entered here, but what we do is we cross-reference approved cost, and you can pick this. So at one point in time, JobTread edited this, and we had to make a change to make sure it was approved cost. But you want it to be approved cost, and that includes in all the change orders and anything that's been approved. And so 6110, and then we know so far we have 5520 that's either paid or payable bills in JobTread. So that leaves us $590 left. So what we do is we check to make sure there's not $590 over $590, because if it was over that, then we have a process for making sure that's being flagged. So if it was over an X amount of dollars, it gets put into the subject line, and I'll show you an actual bill in a second. But we enter that information in here, whatever it may be. So if this was 5520, and then we would also, in the next screen, we would log that it's over. And I'm going to show you one in a second here that is over. And this really flushes out and goes all the way into our process for bill approval from a week-to-week basis on our AR and AP meeting. So I'm going to go back and I'm just going to show you. And this is where we also use reports. So every one of our superintendents have their own bill approval report. And then I'll show you. So you'll see that the subject of this one is the invoice number that Aspen or this contractor has, or subcontractor. But then every single time it shows the subject of over by X amount of dollars. So that oftentimes things that get left up in approval are the ones that we have issues with or whatnot. So you'll see when I click in on this, it's very simple. We input the bill, which was the next screen that I would have went to. All we do is we type in the subject here, and then that flags it. So when it goes into our ARAP meeting, it will show up as over by this amount. And you'll see as we go down here, our team marks a bunch of information here and comments. So that way, if we see that on a report, we're going to go back and we're going to address those things. So this was an issue and a typo on here. So now this is going to at some point get voided out, but it shows, right, a 209%. So when we go and we show up approved cost, we'll see that this is over as well. So we'll point that out and we'll show that here. The other thing that you also saw back on our scorecard is that we have this unapproved bills per week. So I'm going to show you that. So we want to make sure that there's this ends up getting, we technically right now it's 3 or less, but we want to really get this to about 0 each week as our goal. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bills that are unapproved that are more than 7 days. And this is critical because when we're entering invoices in, it's showing payable amounts in there first to show us this over budget. And so we want to make sure the bills get approved every single week so that when we go into the next week, we're fresh and all our information is accurate from week to week basis. We have some old ones in here, but you'll also see when we have the month checkout list, that's when we're making sure every one of these gets closed out from the prior month. One thing that we do think is really, really amazing with JobTread is just the ability to like change and edit these reports whenever we want. So we have a ton of reports in here, and then it's so easy to edit these and change these. So I think that if you're not taking advantage of this, is really one big thing that I would definitely take advantage of because the filtering information is one of the biggest things that some of this technology can offer us, and JobTread specifically. And this allows a really, really great filtering mechanism for that. So this is where we go to our weekly AR and AP report. So every week we just have a report that's in QuickBooks. We use QuickBooks Online, and then it just allows us to export that. We have the same columns. It's basically a copy and paste. So we copy and paste that spreadsheet in from QuickBooks Online to here. And the really nice thing is you'll see in the numbering, but also in the memo and description, this shows that we're over by 562.50, over by 562.50. And then also what I really like about this is it gives us a link in here. So you'll see some of these are linked, and that means we've clicked on them. So all you have to do is click and enter. And we use Google Sheets for all of our stuff that's online. And you just click, and then now you can open up any one of these in JobTread really quickly. So if we're in our meeting, I can say, well, why are we over by this amount? Why are we over by this amount? And my team, before our meeting, they'll put notes in here. And they'll also put some notes in JobTread because it's like a record of everything. But this is really powerful because it gives us that multi-bill approval. And you'll see everyone that's over. And then these are the things where I'm like, wait a minute, do we need to pay that? Oh, maybe there was a typo within JobTread and we're okay with paying that. Or there's specific reasons, but this is where we'll see that. And then we just go and mark every week if we're going to pay them or not. So this really is helpful for me from an owner's perspective, or maybe if it's a CFO or somebody that's a financial person at a company. This really helps us it allows us to filter the information to dive in where we want to. Again, I think one of the most important things about when we talk about technology is it should be a filtering mechanism. So the more and more jobs we have, the more and more items we have to review, we get a filter in like just what's over budget. So our superintendents are reviewing and approving everything that's on budget. And then our project managers are able to see everything and approve the things that are over budget. And then on a weekly basis, I can see what has been approved that's over budget. And then I can look into the reasons why, either through this link or through the notes that we have here through our project managers. So it just really gives a really good pulse from a weekly basis. So we're not wondering why our financials are bad at the end of the month. We really know from a week to week standpoint or week to week basis. And this little change has made a really big impact to us for our company. So now we went over what this looks like from a kind of a week to week bill approval scorecard. But now we also have just a separate monthly closeout checklist. And this where it gets really not more high level, but it gets a little bit, I don't know, just more detail, I guess, with making sure our month books are closed out. And so I actually just made a copy of our current one, and I highlighted all the things that relate to JobTread. And so we first make sure that all the bills are entered into JT by the end of the month. So everything that comes through email is going to get pushed in, and it's going to be pushed into JobTread before the end of the month. So that's step 0, step 1, and then we're going to make sure that all the bills from that month, the month we're closing out, are approved within JobTread. So all of that gets approved because that really impacts our WIP report based off of information we push into our QuickBooks. Because if a draft bill doesn't get inputted into all of our WIP reports and whatnot through JobTread. So we want to make sure first it's approved, so it's payable. Doesn't mean it has to be paid, but it means at least it's payable. And then we want to make sure we populate the WIP report. So we just have a WIP report that we put into a spreadsheet so we can log that. But a huge game changer for us has been JobTread releasing their WIP report, and filtering it by dates has been super, super impactful for us. So we actually input it twice because I want to know as quickly as possible within the first few days of a month closeout. I want to know kind of where we're at. This is a little bit of a duplication. You wouldn't have to do this, but I like to see it really quickly. It does change, but it doesn't change a ton. So that's a step that you could forgo and just do the end WIP report, because we basically step 8, step 3 are very similar. But in the meantime, we're getting a lot of other things done through our accounting. And then we also, from a PM perspective, we make sure that all jobs have checked off items that are completed, which affects a WIP report. So that final checkbox on your budget, you'll want to make sure that you check those things, because what happens is if things come in over budget, then it's going to show that you have slippage on that job. But when you click that checkbox, then it allows it to make sure that some of those under budget items, you get credit for it, if that makes sense. And we can talk more about that. But this is super, super impactful for closing out the job. So we want to make sure this gets done, really gets on a weekly basis, but we're going to put a more emphasis on a monthly basis. And then we just we do that final population of the WIP report, and then the final over under billing. And this is super key. I didn't know this in the beginning, and this is certainly a game changer for my business, because I thought I was making more money than I was. And so making sure this gets done and gets done correctly is super, super important. And we just export this in a spreadsheet, and then it gives our final over under billings entry, and then we enter that into QuickBooks Online. So this completes our month-end closeout process. So again, we talked weekly, we talked monthly, and cadence is key with a lot of these things. If you expect to get really great results and you review this annually or review this quarterly, then we think that that's a big miss. And so we want to make sure from a weekly basis we're on track. And then we also want to make sure our month-to-month financials are closed out very effectively, so we're not getting this up and down trends in our graphs. And we can be very predictable, or as predictable as we can in this industry, because that's one of the things we've seen has been a challenge, is that 1 month is way up, 1 month is way down. And if our reports aren't correct, meaning we don't have all of our bills entered in, we don't have all these check boxes checked, then we get that big swing because we're pushing revenue from 1 month into the other month. And you notice if you do these things, that you get more consistent months, which makes a big difference to making sure that you can review with a team of people, or you can have other people responsible on the team to make sure that we have accurate financials at the end of each month. Another thing that we do that I think is important to touch base on, but it's a little bit more about how do we become better from a job to job basis or some learning lessons. Um, we don't necessarily do this for every single job, but it's our after action review. You can call it debrief, you can call it whatever you wanted to, but it's basically going through and making sure that we learn from jobs. And so jobs that specifically maybe went poorly or you got a bad customer experience, these are jobs we care about more to do these after action reviews so we get more learning lessons from. But we basically just have a thinning list. We have really like important metrics. So GP percentage, schedule deviation, how far if we promise the client 10 weeks, did it take 11, that sort of thing. Client satisfaction, we get that rating through the conversation with the client. And then QC checks that we perform all our quality control checks. And then we just kind of have conversation and really just recording wins and recording areas to improve. But this is super basic. It's not hard or complicated, but it is important to do on this, especially those challenging jobs where you had maybe something that you really think that there can be something gained from or learned from. Me. Um, so did we meet our outcome? I think we'll have some more, we will have some more question and answer throughout this, but the outcome really is to try to figure out how we can boost profitability and accountability driven culture, which it ultimately should transform life, work and personal life. I know for me, like I used to work 90 hours a week, 100, whatever, a lot of hours per week. And I felt like I was just so busy of things. And I think for me, one of the biggest things now is to do a better job of making more money, but also having more time with my family. And so here's some of the mechanisms that we did in my history of my company to help out in giving me more time and flexibility with my family and to actually be able to make more money with less time put into work. So I hope you can learn from some of this too. And we'll go through your question and answer as well. But if there's anything else you want to see or look at or me to send you, I'm happy to do that as well. You can put it in the chat or question and answer, or you can also contact me as well. So, Casey, let's jump into Q&A.
Yeah, so we on the live part of the webinar, some of that video will have been harder for some people if you don't have fantastic eyesight. So,
Hmm.
would you be able to send us the YouTube link? Is that something that you're
Yeah, of
interested in sharing?
course.
Yeah, so if you want to pop that into the chat, I'll also get that from you and I'll put it into tomorrow when we post the video. I'll put it in as a comment so people will have
Yeah.
access. So yeah, we'll jump into the questions. We did have some questions about some of the forms that you put together. I think a lot of people were form envious of some of your materials that you shared. So okay, awesome. So we'll jump right in. James, Cleam, I'm so sorry if I said your name wrong. We'll just say James. Are you trying to incorporate green sustainable type production?
We only prioritize it if our client prioritizes that. I'm a big believer that it's not my job to dictate what a client should or shouldn't do. It's my job to give them a knowledge and information to be their guide. So some clients really, really care about that. We're in Iowa, so I'm not on the West Coast or some areas where there might be some more sustainability practices being done. So a lot of my clients, they don't care about it as much. And so for the sake of my business, if I did that, it would really hinder my ability to serve more clients. And so we don't do a ton of that, but if they want to know more about that, we do some neat things that are sustainable. It's just really dictated by the client and the education that we can provide.
Love it. Love it.
So,
Yeah. James also had a question about he's interested in all the things which I really love. He said, "How are you using or are you using AI in boosting profitability?"
that's a great question. We have used AI a ton. A lot of that has been in marketing material because it's really, really great with language because they're mostly language models, but they're also good at like researching. So we've done a lot of things with research as well to from the sales side of the business. Um, we haven't done as much on the profitability side. We've actually we're in the kind of the mix of using an AI agent to look through our softwares and systems to find issues. So you could, we've talked about this, we haven't implemented this, but you could potentially use AI to maybe see and look through your data to say what jobs are missing bid requests or statements of work or whatever your process of things that are very important to you. One thing I think that AI can be helpful with is they can search a lot of things and work 24/7, and they could go find the things that maybe you're missing or the inputs that haven't been input into your software systems. They could say a job has sold and you're missing statements of work. And the ones you care about, you don't care about paint, but you care about mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So those are types of things that we've explored a little bit, but haven't really acted upon them, but could be great opportunities to help a manager be able to manage and lead through using AI as a tool.
Love it. Okay, so real quick, James followed up and says it's Clamé is how you pronounce his last name, and he says, "Because come on, please push it, Nicholas. We only have one planet."
Yeah, no, I agree with them. I think like, I don't disagree, James. I don't.
Love it. Okay, so Greg Kishko said to minimize slippage, do you use critical path analysis?
So I don't know exactly. So, Greg, if you're able to explain that a little bit more, we do critical path analysis for our schedules. I'm not sure exactly what your thought process is on that with JobTread, but we do critical path analysis with our scheduling to make for that efficiency. Because I believe one of the biggest issues in our industry with profitability is this inefficiency of like delays and like lag times between subcontractors, and a job should take a month but takes 3 months. To me, that's a really big issue. So we use I think JobTread has baselines now. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, and I think they've had it for maybe a year or two now.
Mm.
We actually use a smart sheet scheduling, but we just use it because initially JobTread didn't have some of these things, and so we actually we analyze our baselines. And right now, a big push for us was getting under 10% deviation on our schedules. So we baseline it, which would be kind of some scheduling would be dictated based on critical path analysis, where you click the critical paths and you see how you can shrink that. But the more important thing to us is we say, this is what we say a project should take based off of our superintendents putting the schedule together. And then we click a button, the baselines it, similar to what JobTread has. And then we actually have a rolling report, and I can show that if that's important for people to see. And it shows our percent deviation. It actually doesn't do a weighted average, so we actually pull the calculation separately, but we look at from a month-to-month basis how much deviation we are on our jobs. Because for me, I believe the selling what we do is very integral to operations, and operational performance is a great way to sell in our industry, in my opinion. And so right now we're at 0.7% deviation on our schedules as of last month. We'll measure it this month too. From what we said we would do at signing day when somebody signs a remodel agreement with us to when we actually finish the project. So that critical path is very important to us, but it's from a scheduling perspective. So Greg, if that has answered your question, you can let us know, and I can try to answer it away if that's helpful.
Yeah, that is what he was asking. I know that somebody had asked at the very beginning of your presentation what you were talking about specifically when it came to slippage, because I know some people will talk about time slippage and some people
Sure. Cost
cost.
slippage.
Well, yeah.
Yep. We had a lot of slippage, like I said in the beginning of my company, because we were about $1 million company, plus or minus. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then in a year, I sold $5.7 million worth of work because I never knew how to sell, and I figured it out, and it worked pretty well. But then at the same time, COVID hits like right after all that was sold. And so we had fixed price agreements, and that was a very challenging time for us. So it was a matter of just navigation and getting it done as fast as we can. And then we since controlled slippage by putting more practices in place like JobTread.
Mm. Now, Nicholas, you mentioned COVID. What was that? What is that? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, so Philip Kilpatrick actually had the pleasure of getting to watch this presentation at JobTread, and he came back, wanted to hear it again. He had several questions for you, one which was about if you use the lead carpenter method, or are your superintendents the ones performing the work?
Yeah, our superintendents are they're carpenters by trade, and so they will perform work. I we typically say their jobs are to manage the project. Now, if they can grip and they can do work and they have time to do it, then I would say do as much as humanly possible. But we're not expecting them to do all the work or a large portion of the work. But we do consistently take on trades, and we have a month or a weekly like a project huddle. It's like a very kind of lean huddle methodology of like what's happening next week. Boom, 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 boom. And if they have availability, then they'll jump on a job and assist each other. But they're not, I typically try to stay away from calling them carpenters because their primary responsibility is to run the project efficiently.
Nice. So
If
Eric,
that's all.
kind of in light of that, Eric Thomas asked, he said he's a remodeling general contractor. Is your installer team in-house or are you running mostly subs?
Yeah, mostly subcontractors. I think that that's from our perspective, that's the most scalable method quickly because we can turn in a new sub much quicker than we can hire an individual or a team of individuals. Um, but we do perform work on a consistent basis. A lot of the work we perform is we have a field manager that does all like punch outs, warranty work. So we do all of our punch outs and warranty work. We also hold subcontractors accountable to actually do what they promised they would do. But there's always lingering stuff at the end. And so we plug in a percentage for job closeout into our budgets and JobTread. And then we actually track all of our hours to make sure to see how we're kind of gripping and slipping on project closeouts.
Love it. All right. Dean Ebozu. What a great last name, Dean. What do you talk about during your AR/AP meetings and how does that go? I think you talked a little bit about it, but if you want to expand a bit more.
Yeah, it is so fast. It's one of my favorite meetings because it's just boom, boom, boom. So the main purpose is we just export reports from QuickBooks, so it's very simple in terms of how to do it, and our admin just exports them and puts them in a spreadsheet, and then we look at anything that's past 30 days of accounts payable, so customers that owe us money, and we say why is that, and so we'll connect with the right team members to say what I mean if they're not paying, there's potentially an issue with the client that we want to make sure we address. And then outside of that, it's pretty quick because our clients are really good about paying us quickly. They weren't as good until we started getting into a better rhythm. And then the AR part, accounts receivable, so bills coming in. It's really a review of over budget items and then what's due. And then our team, our admin will ask, does anybody have to get paid this week? And then we prioritize them first, assuming we like to work with them and they're good partners to work with. Um, and then we're paying anything that is going to come due in the next 7 days. So if you saw my spreadsheet, and I can show it again if you want to, but it auto highlights anything in red in this column that says due days, and if it's anything there, then it'll highlight those. So it makes it very visual and easy for us. And we've since for that video, we actually highlight the row or a few uh, columns that if it says over, then it'll auto highlight them in red. So I just can really quickly see here's the 5 over budget line items, and I can click, click, click. And sometimes I'll prep that ahead of the meeting or in the meeting. But it usually takes 15 minutes,
Would
20
you
minutes.
mind showing your screen? Just like one real quick. I know that the video was like within, so it didn't full screen. So some of the things that I think people were hopeful to see clearly, it might be better just to get a good view of it if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, let's see here. Which one?
Be cognizant that these will be shared out. So if there's anything you don't want to show, maybe that is something to think
Yeah,
about.
I can. No, that's fine. Not a problem. I want to make sure I'm showing the right screen. Is that right?
That's your presentation.
Sorry, one sec. It's like I have multiple things pulled up for multiple presentations.
I'll go ahead and ask you one question while you're looking at that.
Yeah.
Philip actually asked if he could get a copy of several of your spreadsheets, and he said, "Are the KPIs manually entered into one of the spreadsheets that you were showing?"
Yeah, I'll pull up ARP/AP and then I'll diagnose that or work through that. So
Yeah.
this is our current spreadsheet. So it gives us some really helpful information. So we have some other I'm not going to show you this other spreadsheet, but you can talk to me if you want to hear more about it. But it tells us like what we have available to pay and things like that. So we basically so if you look at this, for example, it just shows what we have left to pay. So if I undo that, whoop, So it just helps us with what do we have to pay, what's the total amount that we're paying each week. And then also there's some formulas that say this is due in the next 7 days. So we can see it'll populate if they're due in the next 7 days. So we go through and we say, here's everything we're going to pay, boom, 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 boom. And then the big thing we're going to focus on is we're going to focus on these red highlights, automatically highlight their conditional formatting. It's pretty easy to do. You can AI it, YouTube it, whatever. But it highlights everything that's over budget. So I can say, oh, that's over budget for 1,500, $400, 750. So most of these are on budget, but and this is the key, when you type in the subject line in JobTread, then it pushes into QuickBooks Online. I think it does the same thing on desktop, but the number is so it's over. And so that's the thing that's critical to me. And it gives me this really good system of checks and balances. So that way, everybody in my company knows that if it's over budget, there's probably going to be a conversation, right? And I mean, if it's $100, it might not be a conversation, right? But there could be a conversation. And so it helps with accountability of saying, well, like, let's not have the conversation of things being over budget. And so again, you're a construction manager. If you're a larger company, construction manager, other people can do this. I prefer to do this right now because of the issues we've had in the past. So it's one of my checks and balances that works really well, in my opinion. What was your next question? Is about sharing stuff or sharing what?
Yeah, he asked if you would mind. Let me go back to it so I'm not. He just asked, are the KPIs entered manually? Was that the part? He was just basically asking if you could share some of your sheets. He asked if you could share that sheet. I think he also asked about the, where to go, monthly closeout checklist as well. He also said, I'd love the AAR form. I think Philip is just a big fan. And so maybe if you have some of these reports or even copies, I think probably some of the other people would love that as well. So as much as you're comfortable sharing, you could probably shoot those over to me or create like a Google Drive, give me the link and
Yeah,
we could put it in the chat for the Facebook post tomorrow, and then everyone can have
yeah.
access.
Sure. I just sent my email address too on the chat as well. So if anybody wants to reach out to me about, I can share any of these things. It's that have been helpful in this presentation or other questions you have. Um, but yeah, this is actually our new report that I that weekly report, but they actually get entered manually. You could use AI for this, but I actually weekly know and understand where we're at from each department and who's responsible for it. And then I also know every individual activity and if it was a hit or a miss that week. And we have player stats and some other things, but we can see sales and marketing, admin, operations. But then this is where it would show us where we're at in the current week. And it's been really, really successful for our team. And this actually gets entered in manually. But we have an SOP, a Loom video or a video for everyone, and then an SOP here. It's very simple. Click this, click that, do this. So you can have an admin do it. You could have a virtual assistant do it. It's super, super easy to do. And the other thing that I'd say has been very helpful for us, it makes it very clear for everybody to know what success looks like on a weekly basis. Because sometimes I would let people input this information themselves. And what I found is that it's like 80% done and it's like basically done. And I want it to be black and white done as much as possible on a weekly basis because it's like the activity fully performed. It's like in construction, if the tile waterproofing was 80% done, was it done correctly? I would say no. So in my opinion, this is where you have to create some level of black and white because the rest of the business can be very gray. And so I like to perform this in a black and white manner, and it just gets entered in, and then it gives us a statistic on our current week, how we're doing from every single activity. And I focus on weekly. I focus on activities, not metrics. So it's like things they can 100% do every week. The only caveat to that is our marketing. I do track leads every weekly. So that's the only thing that is like we can't control as much, but everything else we can 100% control. And that, I think, in my opinion, when we go back to if people are struggling, we'll go back to player stats and I know this is a lot of information to take in. When you see it all the time, it's easier, but you can see if people have struggled for a period of time, right? And if they struggle 3 weeks in a row, we have conversations around, is there a reason why you can't hit some certain metrics? And that's very helpful from a coaching and clarity perspective from a team. Are we measuring it incorrectly? Can you not be successful? But that's super, super helpful in my opinion. Oh, Casey, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I had my microphone muted. It's amazing. Unmute it. What happens? This is a real quick question. Dimitri actually asked if you were going to the Build Show Live this week.
What is the Build Show Live?
Just a conference.
I'm not. Sorry. Don't know about it. Sounds cool though.
Yeah. Maybe this is a good opportunity, Dimitri, for you to try and persuade. James just said, just broadly, you are crushing it in your operation. So you've got some
Thanks.
admirers. So way to go.
Thanks.
Um,
Appreciate that.
Philip
It's nice
actually said he'd love to
support.
see the execution report template as well. He said he is building out all of these items on his task for this fall. So again, I think, guys, this is why we do these things, these pro spotlights, because a lot of you have the capabilities. In fact, that's why JobTread exists, because there's so many great builders who just need systems. They need ideas. They need help, learning how to infrastructure the things that they do really well. And once you put these things in place, which is again the crux of what Nicholas is saying, if you get the right systems, you get the right, checks and balances and team around you, then you can really do some powerful things. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
absolutely.
would, sorry, Casey, I would interrupt for 1 second. So I think the other thing that I would just say is that JobTread is one tool and there's many other tools. And to think that JobTread can solve it all for you is not a good idea, in my opinion. I think JobTread solves a really, really good a lot of problems probably for people. But I think you also have to just look at it from a holistic perspective. There's going to be limitations to JobTread, like there is every single software everywhere, because they don't know what you want. They know what, I mean, JobTread does a really, really great job at figuring out like what most people in the industry need, and they give it to them. But your case might be slightly different, like ours. So we build in systems and processes to help accommodate for things that we don't have and don't get from certain things, because we look at things differently than maybe you would look at, or Casey would look at, or other people would look at. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. One of the things that I'll say that I share with everybody all the time is JobTread is so flexible. And to your point, Nicholas, one of the things that we've tried to do, and if you don't believe me, go check out our feature request board. We have tried to learn what things you guys need to know, need in your workflows. And then we've given you the ability to upvote it because some people are just like dead
So
set.
first, we're going to start to make
Oh,
sure we have. Sorry,
it's
I'm
okay.
trying to get the people. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
no worries. Some people will think, oh my gosh, like I really need you to do this one specific thing. And what you don't know is you may be the only person who does it that way. But it may be the way that you do it, which means finding the right tools that help facilitate either your learning and development and growth in your processes, or tools that will help you with the process that you're already implementing if it really works. And so just know the software is very flexible, but there are a lot of other great tools out there. We just try to make sure that we play nice with a lot of the ones that you are trying to use. And not everyone will play nice, and then you have to really make some decisions. But most of the time, with as Nicholas said, as we learn more about what sort of the broader ecosystem of builders are looking for, we try to find ways of accommodating either integration or help. I just saw, if you go over to the chat, Nicholas just posted up his YouTube link for anybody that's interested to watch that video that he just gave as well.
Yeah,
Um,
and I agree with you, Casey. I think job should plays well with a lot of things, but yeah, you can't dictate how everybody's going to share things or do things. And we use one integration with Zapier from HubSpot, our CRM, to you guys, and there's all sorts of things you can do. But the other thing I always say is that like there's some like you know somebody has to enter it manually. There's some things that are not bad to enter manually and have a pulse on. So I would say like we all want to, and I'm the same way. Like, would I love to shortcut things to make things more efficient? For sure. But there is some weekly good checks and balances that you don't want to just automate everything. Now, I think there are reasons to automate, and that's why we have a HubSpot integration with JobTread, so everything just pushes in. I don't have to enter everything twice, three times, whatever. But I would just keep in mind that there's a balance there, and it's just the balance is important. I would just say.
okay, so Brad um, asked, let's see, Nicholas Sharon may not be good. Okay. Okay,
Oh,
has everybody seen what Nicholas has been sharing? What he shared, by the way, Philip, sorry, is
I didn't share
just
with everyone. My apologies.
oh, okay, gotcha. Host and panelists. There we go to everyone. Okay, perfect. Sorry. Thanks, Philip, for that. Um, so speaking of Philip, he actually asked, how are you handling potential savings of items that are under budget? For example, there may be an auto approval for an item under budget, but maybe you could have used a different sub or vendor and saved more.
Sorry, say that one question one more time. How do I what?
I think he was wondering how you handle potential savings of item that come in under budget. So if you have, I think he was referencing, he said, for example, there may be an auto approval for an item under budget. And then I think he
Yeah,
quantified. Yeah.
yeah. So our superintendents, if it's not over budget, they have an approval list, and I can show you the report if you want to see it. Uh, and then actually, let me just share this with you. That might be helpful. Let's just go through it. Uh, okay, I think you can still see this, right? This is a presentation, right?
Yep. Yep.
So let's do this. Okay, JobTread reports. Let's see here. It would be documents. Uh, let's see here. Bill unapproved on budget. See if we have anything here. So this is the on budget report. So our superintendent, we changed it to the Kanban board because we like it a little bit better. But we can see Buddy has 6, Jarrett has 2, Matt has 2. And so they go through and they approve these. Their job is to get to 0 every week. So that's how that works. But then you mentioned under budget items. So how we log under budget things is that's when we go to the jobs and we go to and we click the checkbox to get credit for the under budget items. Is that, I think that answers the question, right? I mean, let's see here. I'm going to sorry, I'm going to so we don't see some things about my clients. Let's look at this. I don't know if this is budgets. So let's look at this for an example. Hopefully you can see this okay. Can you see this okay?
Yep.
But this is that final checkbox that you're looking at, and then you can see where there's plus minuses on things. So in design phase 1, we gripped $130. We gripped a penny here. We gripped $4 there, right? You can kind of see where we're gripping on things. And then our estimator will go and check these boxes off. He typically does weekly, but we want it to at least be end of month check boxes because this impacts our WIP report because it shows, hey, on this job, we're gripping $3,000, which shows that our GP percentage is higher, which impacts our overall financials and our WIP entry at the end of the month. So this is how we're getting credit for the under budget items. And if you don't click the checkbox, you don't get credit for those under budget items, quote unquote. If that's probably poor wording, but that gives you the concept at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and so we've got Brad who asked, who is entering your bills and how do they know what category to assign them to?
Great question. So we have a virtual assistant that kind of admin that they look through our accounting inbox and they enter every single thing in every single day. So it's one person entering all the bills in for the jobs. A lot of it is experience over time. And then also we had kind of I think at some point we had like an SOP on what goes where. They can also look at statements of work and bid request to see that. A lot of it's that. And the other thing is when things are entered into the wrong category, they will show over budget, right? So then oftentimes the over budget items, there might be conversation around. So let's see if there's documents over budget. Let's see if there's some over budget ones. So with some dialogue. Okay, there's nothing over a week, which is good. Okay, he's got a few. So this says over, right? Let's see what this one looks like. It says over. What is it over? Which it looks like JobTread might have changed some things where maybe it's instead of subject line, we're doing it as bin or bill number. So it looks like you can either do either or now. I don't think that was available previously. Okay, see this? So can you move the last 750 to demo or sub/labor? So like there will be mistakes in this, but when they're gone to the wrong code, they will show as over. So then it's a matter of moving them correctly. I don't know if other people know this as well, but like when you go to, let's go to settings. Let's see if I can remember this right. Where's the, do you remember how to get to uncategorized or uncategorized?
You're looking for uncategorized in your reports?
Yeah, there's a way to, oh, uncategorized cost mapping.
Yeah.
Gosh, we don't have any. So the other thing too is you might find that if they put it to a budget item that doesn't have a budget on
What
accident
your
somehow,
cost
like, let's
mapping?
say, yep. So let's say there's an expense that because we actually input expenses through QuickBooks first, and then it pushes into JobTread just because it's a better system for us. So if it pushes in uncategorized, then you can easily map it here, or you can go to the budget itself and map it to the correct category. And then on the individual jobs, you can actually remap things too. So
Mhm.
that might be a better Casey question later, but you can remap things as well, or you can void it out and change it. But there is mistakes that happen, right? Because somebody's not doing the job, but then it's a matter of we believe that you should just the person who's inputting them, ask them to change it versus changing yourself because they don't learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got two questions that are related. So Matthew, I think, is inspired by how you learned to sell $5 million in a year and was curious what your biggest trick is. I know you mentioned that you figured out sort of sales. What do you think was the biggest learning lesson that helped you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think a few principles, I guess, overall, I would say the acronym WIIFM, what's in it for me? I think one of the biggest thing to do is think about what's in it for the client because they're tuned in their own radio station, WIIFM. So like really figure out how to meet their needs, I think is probably the biggest thing that I would say. And I think there's some basic ones, like I would highly recommend the book Never Split the Difference. I think it is good about mirroring and matching, using tone of voice. They something empathy where it's like having empathy for the customer, things like that. That's a really good book to read. I think that, in my opinion, is underappreciated from a sales book perspective. And then I would say uh, the other thing I think that I would also just say is that I've been getting back into sales because there was like 4 years where I didn't sell, and I've gotten back into it recently to kind of push things forward. Um, is I would say having good tools so a salesperson can help the customer get an idea of what things cost, whether it's a list of past projects. We have a project spotlight document that tells what people paid, what their scope was, and then we used AI for a lot of these things to help with building those documents. Um, but that's super helpful because a lot of people want to know what this could cost before they move into the design process or start paying you, obviously. And so having some really good systems around that is helpful. And if you reach out, I can maybe share more if you want some more context to things.
Love it. So yeah, Philip's final question was about how many jobs and what are you currently doing a year?
Right now, we'll do about 6 million this year. Our goal is to be a little higher. We had a kind of a sales issue that I've kind of jumped in to try to help push. A bit. I'll pat myself on the back. We sold $1 million in design agreements. Well, construction value of design agreements that got sold in last after I got involved in September. So I'm pretty excited about moving things forward. I'm not saying I can sell $1 million a month, but consistently, but it was a pretty great little win for us
Mhm.
um, to push some sales forward. But it's about 6 million, and we'll probably do 7 or 8 next year, I'm guessing. So
Love it. Well, guys, that is all of the questions we made it through. Guys, Nicholas, thank you so much for sharing. I think, again, one of the things that is important is that there will be some things that will absolutely work for you and your workflow and what you do. But like take a lot of the concepts. Some of the forms that he might offer us and make available to you will be really helpful. But you're really going to need to invest the time to think about, some of the processes and learn from other people like Nicholas. Um, but do something, try and figure out how to act smarter too. So learn from other people and then try and implement really useful tools like the things that he showed you. And again, I appreciate your honesty too. JobTread's not going to solve every problem that you have. So learning what tools you need to utilize is going to be important. Guys, you're all in construction. You got a lot of tools. Not all those tools are going to work for everybody in every type of job, right? So you got to learn
yeah,
what the right tools are.
Yeah, and I would say too, like I think a lot of times, and I think I've realized this when I was like observing lectures or presentations at JobTread Connect. Actually, I kind of made this observation that I think a lot of times when you go to the Q&A section, it seems like people want this like silver bullet. And I think the goal shouldn't be striving towards this like one thing that just fixes all your problems or fixes like it. It's a progression, and it is like every business operates differently, but also they're at different kind of season in life, right? Like I used to have a little thing on my thing that talked about like they related the business season with like adolescence and how a kid grows up. But like the things I show you here, there might be some principles that are better to take away than the actual way of exactly how I do it or other people do it. But I think understanding the principles help will be better guiding than like the actual things that every single person is doing because I might measure a lot more things than you should measure right now if you're just getting started on measuring some things. And so I just think that don't look for silver bullets and kind of know where you're at in your business life cycle to figure out what you can do and implement with your team. And if you can't motivate your team to be a part of it, then I would say I would first start there before anything else. Because if they're not a part of it, then I've created so many things that have been completely worthless because I was the only person that was bought into it. And I would say you first have to start there, and then the rest will follow, and you can just keep doing more and more. But don't try to bite the whole apple at once. Take one bite at a time. Is my would be my kind of advice as well.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I'm also going to do, if you're just curious, again, I think stories are really powerful. I think you get a lot of, sort of axioms out of hearing people's progress, asking how did you go from 1 million, you got up to 5 million, now you're at 6 million. I think learning some of the things that motivate you, how you're made, what are the struggles that you've had. Go check out his builder story episode. I think you're going to be really interested to hear a little bit more about his story as he fleshes it out. I just put the link in the chat to everyone. And I do want to say that one of the things that I think is really helpful is, again, sharing stories. So, in light of that, I'm going to put this here as a shameless plug. Part of one of the of what I'm doing here at JobTread is I want to make sure that we are properly recognizing some of our great users. And so I just put up a link to our awards. If you've grown and if you've got a great story to tell, whether that's through how you're estimating, whether that's how your business has grown, whether it's how you're leveraging technology, or if you think that you stand out amongst your peers, we have awards. We have innovation and estimating. We've got technology trailblazer, best growth story, and we've got contractor of the year for different industries. Let us into your process, tell your story, and give us the chance to recognize you amongst your peers because it's just a great way, again, to share what's happened with your business, but also there are things that we might be able to pull out and draw out and share with other people that they can learn from conceptually. So, shameless plug to be proud of your business. Put yourself out there, put yourself forward for an award. I put that link there. But again, Nicholas, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for your time. If you guys want to give him a great JobTread thank you and clap over in the chat. Again, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing at Connect, but then also for coming back. And we hope to see you. Are you coming to Connect this year? Do you know?
I'm not going to make it to connect my daughter's birthday and some other things, but I will be at IBS speaking with JobTread there.
Oh, awesome.
Just too many trips in that time frame
That's right.
um,
Crowded
to make
season.
it work. This yeah, busy season. We got a lot of young kids right now, so it's hard to manage everything. But yeah, and I would the other thing I would just second to what you said, Casey. I think that one thing that's been cool to see with JobTread is just like the desire to share these stories and have people benefit from each other. And I think that's it's a great platform that you guys have that I would say that isn't done enough of. I think that our industry historically hasn't always been been known to be as good as we are, and it's a hard industry. And I just think that the sharing of information and making each other better and lifting up the industry is a huge thing we should all strive to be a part of. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the awards, all the things, I would second to everything Casey said about getting involved and sharing your story and sharing anything that you're doing really well that others can benefit from, especially outside your market that aren't competitors with you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the things that Eric, our CEO, says, Eric Fortenberry, is and he spoke about this at Connect this last year, but a rising tide lifts all boats. And if we can all grow from one another, and then the whole industry can be lifted up. I'm sure you guys have seen reports, but with the sort of advent of AI and the progression of AI, man, there are so much need for tradespeople and for people that have the ability to use their hands and the things that they've learned, the tools that they've learned to kind of help us build in the future as systems kind of jump in place. So any way that we can help each other and sort of put an arm around one another or push each other. Maybe it's just prodding a little bit, to try and encourage one another and sharing stories, I think is a really, really worthwhile thing to take part in. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Nicholas, both here and then a builder story. And hopefully, man, many successes in the future. Thank you, everybody, for jumping onto the Pro Spotlight. We're going to have another one, a really exciting one. Actually, my boss, Anna Hunter, is going to be sharing in 2 weeks, talking about process mapping. So, for some of you, whether it's with JobTread, just again, thinking about your processes in your businesses, I think is going to be really helpful for you. So, make sure you jump on here in 2 weeks, and we will see you on the Pro Spotlight. Nicholas, have a fantastic rest of your day. Good luck with 6 kids, man. What a blessing. You have doubled me up. You've lapped me. I've got 3. So, yeah, enjoy
Thank
that.
you.
We will see you guys hopefully in the future. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.